Shabbat Shalom. The Bintel Brief is back. The Bintel Brief was an advice column that ran in the Jewish Forward from about 1906 to 1970. In its early decades, the column was a source of wisdom for many Jewish immigrants who were seeking insights on how to integrate into American society. People asked about working on the Sabbath, how to resolve conflicts with their acculturated children, and how to deal with many other ethical dilemmas. So as it turns out, the Bintel is back. The Forward, which is now exclusively online, is publishing its advice column once again. Why now? Do we need a Jewish advice column? From Adam and Eve eating the first fruit, to Jacob deceiving Isaac into giving him Esau's birthright and blessing, our relationships have always been fraught with challenges with no simple ethical solutions. This is still the case. We have not perfected the enterprise of being perfectly ethical human beings. This week, we read in the Torah about the Nazir, the Nazarite, a person who vowed to consecrate themselves to God. Nazarites abstained from drink, didn't cut their hair, and followed all the strict rules about purity and holiness that applied to the Kohanim, the priests. A Nazir was a kind of superlative priest, a person who devoted themselves to living according to a strict code of purity in order to achieve closeness to God. Think of the end of Yom Kippur, when the shofar is sounded and you have spent the entire High Holy Days doing tshuva, asking for forgiveness, repenting, praying, and committing to acts of chesed and tzedakah. There is a brief moment of a clean slate, a new page. Maybe this is what it was like to be a Nazir. Every day, like Yom Kippur, dedicated to striving for holiness. The modern Hebrew, Nazir, is understood as being a monk. But the word Nazir itself means separate or abstain. The implication here is that to live as a Nazir is to live a life of isolation, separated, it seems, in great part from engaging fully in personal relationships, which we could argue is no life at all. Samson was the most well-known Nazir in the Tanakh. He possessed great physical strength, but he violated his Nazirite vow at the urgent plea of Delilah, the woman who he loved. Had he not been in relationship with Delilah, perhaps Samson would never have violated his vow. But he was in relationship. And let's just say Samson and Delilah had different needs. There is an entire tractate in the Talmud about Nazirites. Much of it is devoted to how to proceed when the vow is broken, knowingly or unknowingly, by intention or by force. The implication here is that in the real world, keeping the vow is often in conflict with being in relationship with others. We, who are not Nazirites, constantly find ourselves coming up against dilemmas that challenge our moral compasses. Whose needs come first? Which value is more important? I think of a recent conversation I had with other parents like myself whose child was waiting to hear about college acceptances. These days, students do not find out the result of their application by mail. Gone are the times of measuring envelopes by their thickness to determine an acceptance. Instead, the news arrives on an appointed date through email. On the appointed date for their daughter to find out the status of her application to her dream school, she didn't receive any notification. After the day ended without a word, My friends tried to reassure their daughter that clearly there was some oversight or clerical issue. However, she was inconsolable. She was convinced that her application was so terrible that the college was not even going to acknowledge her. The next day, Friday, my friends called the admissions office. They found out that indeed there was an error, and the admissions officer knew the response, but could not share the information with them until Monday, when the person who needed to sign off was back in the office. Our friends explained the anguish that their daughter was experiencing, and the officer took pity on them and said, "Listen, I can tell you the answer, but you cannot share it with your daughter until Monday. I won't tell you unless you promise to keep it to yourselves." Our friends agreed to this and learned that their daughter had, in fact, been admitted. So what do you think they did? Did they tell their daughter or keep their promise to the admissions officer? What would you have done? One need not turn to the Bintel Brief for an answer. We can look to a much older source. Proverbs tell us, "Teach a child in the way they should go, and even in old age they will not stray from it." What kind of values do we want to pass along to our children? I'm not going to reveal what my friends did in this circumstance, but I'm sure it was not an easy decision. Looking at texts like this one can help strengthen us and offer us ways to think through our choices. We are faced with daily ethical dilemmas. Will a certain act hurt another person? Are we putting our own needs too often before others, or the other way around? The Nazir was not fully engaged in some of the day-to-day conflict inherent in a typical life in community. We might view this as a loss on their part. After all, in this daily struggle, we have the opportunity to confront ethical challenges to grow. It is no wonder that Nazarites' vows were severely discouraged by the rabbis of the Talmud, as such vows were in conflict with the spirit of Judaism. We are meant to engage in life fully, not to close ourselves off, hermetically sealing ourselves away. The inherent tensions and challenges in relationships can be blessings, allowing us to grow as we struggle with ethical, moral, and spiritual dimensions of our being. At the end of Yom Kippur, at the sound of the final shofar, we depart the sanctuary together and eat. And before long, we are no longer in this lofty zone of prayer. We find ourselves once again doing the things that are all too human. We gossip, we argue, we make mistakes. The point isn't to never go astray. It's about how we come back. We just celebrated Shavuot, the time of receiving the Torah, which we need now for our daily lives as much as ever. In this world of conflicting desires, we need the lens of Jewish text and tradition to help us see the way forward. Drawing on central teachings from the Torah to help guide our way, we find that all of human experience can be found there. Our efforts to make the journey from rupture to repair, to pick ourselves up time and time again, have the potential to make us stronger, more compassionate, more honest, kind, and wise. Along the way, we are shaped equally by our getting it wrong and getting it right, our transgressions and our goodness, perfectly imperfect as we are meant to be. Shabbat Shalom.